Hey everybody, we're live. Just making sure you can hear us. If you are listening in just now, I'd love to get a little informal poll about where you are listening from. Hey, how are you? I'm Amy with Ask a Christian.
And I am Mark with Amie.
This guy is Mark with Amy. There are so many things that Mark and I do not have in common. I'm female, he's male. I'm lighter, he's darker. We're just stating the obvious tonight. He's got a big heart. I've got big hips. So there's just a lot of things. But one of the things that we both have in common is that we're interested in Jesus, both historical Jesus, Jesus of the Bible, and a person who I believe is not even encompassed in those things, which is the human Jesus. Like, we just can't know him through history, can't know him through the Bible. We're both Christians, and so we believe that you can know him personally, but we're not going to be talking a whole lot about that tonight, certainly, maybe a little bit later on in this series. But we just want to give you an overview of some of the things that we're looking at for this series. And by the way, thank you so much. Welcome. I see a few people on, and you can see on the screen is my friend Chad. Chad, I'm going to take you down for just a second. Chad is actually going to be doing a commercial portion, a little sponsorship for us a little bit later. So this course, what we're going to go through, and hopefully if you registered, you got the printables. I just sent them out. But this course is supposed to start a dialogue, start a journey. There's no way that we can do just a few minutes a night and get into all the facets of Jesus in history or Jesus in the Bible. But we're going to bring you some of our most favorite. So who this course is not for? Well, if you are super skeptical, a super skep, or you are super interested in the literal translation only of the Bible, this is not going to be for you. And not because we don't want you here, not because you're not welcome. You're just not going to like it. And we don't want to, upset you or give you a bad day. So we're just telling you up front. But we do want to explore things, and we do want to keep an open mind. For those of you who are Christian and watching, you are going to be stretched a little bit to understand what the skeptics in your life think, some of the questions they have. And for those of you who are a new Christian, you don't know a whole lot about Jesus, checking out Christianity, you're going to be stretched because we're going to talk about some things that, get deep into history, some things that do make us wonder about who Jesus was. Was he more than a man? Was he just a man? So what I'm trying to say is that as long as you're somewhere in the middle, or you are just starting out your journey, I think you're going to find this fascinating. I'm going to let Mark tell you a little bit about what he does in his background, and what he might bring to the table is honestly a bit more scholarly. I think, Mark, you have been to seminary.
Yes.
And you have been forced probably into 7:30 a.m. classes where you learned a lot. And I have not been to seminary. I'm not a Bible scholar. I mean, I'm a Bible scholar like everyone is, if you're interested and you've read and I've read a bunch of books, but I don't know what a Greek word looks like. So Mark,
Agape?
I do know that one. So just a little bit about your background and where you work.
How far back are we going?
Let's not start at conception, but anytime after that is fine.
Well, grew up in Southern California, so I'm probably what some would consider a West Coast Adventist or Christian. Sorry, but beyond that, that's not really as important. That's insider lingo, which is way beyond anything that we're going to get right here. But no, I grew up, like I said, in Southern California, and currently I pastor in the Bay Area. Before this, as Amie said, I did attend seminary. And so I have an MA in historical theology. In systematic theology and in church history. And so a lot of things that we are discussing, I'm hoping to be able to keep up with Amie and hopefully offer some kind of contributions. But been pastoring for a couple of years and enjoy the church. I enjoy the work of the church, but I really enjoy looking at the Bible critically. And really unearthing what it's saying for us today and how we can explore it in a way that not only it is appealing, but that it is that we can get to the core of the message.
I'm right there with you. I appreciate that. One more thing, just so you know, so you're not surprised, Mark is definitely the polite one, and he will keep me in check, is why I brought him along for the ride. Okay. All right. Just a couple overviews of topics in our schedule. We're going to do this at 6:30 p.m. tonight, obviously, and tomorrow night. And then because it's the weekend and people are doing stuff, we want to make sure it's accessible. So we're doing 9:30 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday. So as you're waking up, you can throw us on while you're drinking your hot drinks or your green smoothies or whatever you love. And we're going to repeat that also next weekend. So Thursday, Friday, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, and then Saturday and Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, and then repeat again next week. I'll remind you, it'll be in the emails. We're going to do giveaways every night for those of you who are registered. That's why we want you to register. We're not trying to creep. Sometimes I do say registered, but I don't want to submit you guys to that joke. But we're going to do 3 or 4 giveaways, usually on a book having to do with the article we're talking about or the topic we're talking about. And tonight we're going to give away Cold Case Christianity by J. Warner Wallace. It's a good book. And yes, it is biased towards the Christian viewpoint, but it's fascinating. It has good research. And even if you are coming to the table with skepticism, you'll at least have a great starting point from what to look at. And if some things don't appeal to you, you're going to be fine. There's a ton of stuff in there, and I like the book. We're also going to give away some fun stuff. So not just theological things. If that's not your bag, there'll be some other things. So if you're registered, you are going to get our printables, and you're going to be in for prize drawings. Now, if you didn't make it tonight, you can make it tomorrow. So we will get to those in just a second. Now, time is slipping away, so I want to move on into this. We are going to talk about how we know what we know about Jesus, different sources, and Mark is going to jump in wherever he wants to. And then we are going to do a commercial break with my friend Chad O'Reed, and then we're going to do drawings kind of in the last third. So that's how it'll go. That's going to kind of be our method. So I'm going to lead out tonight. Mark's going to we're going to switch off a little bit, but Mark, how do we know what we know about Jesus? And do we think that we know Jesus?
How do we know what we know?
How do we even know that we know?
There are a number of sources that we can look at just as far as in history, but I know sometimes those things are debatable. And in the same way that we can look at, let's say, a newspaper article from 1921, or we can look at other artifacts from before that, there are certain things that we can look at in history that Amie will lead us out in tonight as far as exploring different, like I said, things that we can say, hey, we can trust this. And so it's really just a matter of history.
So there's a ton of places we can go with this, and I don't want to get too academic tonight. I want to leave some of that up to you. But yeah, there's different categories or criterion of things that we have to look at. But I just want to talk tonight first about the three main sources for the life of Jesus and how we kind of get to a place of certainty or probability, is what historians say, just like Mark was saying. By the way, I want to let you know that you are free to ask questions and comments at any time. And we will be taking some of those towards the end. Also want to let you know that if you are active in the comment section, this might be a good or bad thing, but we would love to invite you on, pop you up on the screen, and have you ask your questions live. So be prepared for us to approach you as we go on with this series and say, hey, you had a really good point. Will you bring that up in our Q&A time? All right, so with that, I'm going to start with the Bible as one of our main sources, only because by far it has the most written about Jesus. We, like Christians, would love for everything in the Bible about Jesus to be true. I can't think of anything I wouldn't want to be true. Can you?
Not at all.
No, I can't. And then some of the things I really, really, really want to be true, like when Jesus stands up to the bullies and, protects a woman who has been found in adultery, like that is the biggest thing to them. And they're trying to trap Jesus. And he just says, hey, if you're without sin, throw the first stone. That's the kind of Jesus I want to. And if everything in the Bible was true, Jesus would be very attractive. So he would have compassion. He would be a healer. He would be a teacher, a leader, an inspiring guy, a servant of mankind. And of course, if even the spiritual side of the Bible was true, then he would be able to forgive me for sin and even promise salvation. So these are the things that if the Bible ended up being true, that would be awesome. But we have got to understand that for non-religious people, we have some problems. And it's hard to separate the Bible's theology from its history. So we're going to get to that in a little bit. So there's problems for our non-religious friends because these sayings, these acts of Jesus are being written about or recorded by people who are trying to say, yeah, we believe and we want you to believe. And people who are not in that boat, who are not Christian or not religious or spiritual, are like, whoa. How do I know any of this
Slow down.
Was actually true? Yeah, slow down. So, especially when it comes to miracles.
Yes.
Because here is a limitation of history. Here's a limitation of the Bible. Although it can record what happened because of an event, we can't really go back to see if something was a miracle or it wasn't. We can say what people did because they thought it was a miracle, or we can say they appeared to have some kind of thing, but we cannot say for certain. Don't freak out. Because just because we can't prove it does not mean it didn't happen. We just can't prove it. So I just wanted to throw that in case.
I'll say it like this. If we can, and I don't take you too far off track.
No,
if
do
we
it.
could prove everything in the Bible, everybody would be a Christian. We have reason to believe, or we can say it is more probable than not probable. But if it was 100%, we could prove it.
Let's take it to the New Testament.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Because I think if we could prove some things in the Old Testament, bloop,
Very true.
some people be out of here.
So that's all that Amy's saying. That, well, I don't want to speak for Amie.
Speak for her. She loves it. She loves it.
For those, depending on where you fall, it's not trying to throw any doubts as far as those who are kick out a crutch in anything, but it's more so a matter of just the language. Don't get caught up in the language or listen very particularly to it. What can we prove? And ultimately, it's like, okay, then we might not be able to prove anything today, but we can say this is more likely than not to have occurred and to occur like this.
I'm going to pause right now, but we're going to go to our first century sponsorship commercial here in just a second, but I want to say hello to Bud, and Bud is saying, which Bible are we talking about getting information about Jesus from? Do you want to answer first?
I'll let you take the lead because I want to get clarity as far as when you say which Bible are we going
to be studying to get the info about Jesus, about not Thomas Jefferson's Bible. Well, is all I was going to say. Okay,
see, because when I hear which Bible, I'm going back to like which manuscripts or whichever else. So that's how I want to get clarity on the question. Are we talking about which version of the Bible, or which text do we consider sacred or trustworthy? Let me not say sacred. Sorry, which text or which writings do we consider trustworthy? So that's why I'm trying to make sure I understand the question.
Okay, but we'll hear back from you in a minute. And then there was another question. I'll pop it up here so you guys can see it too. But it says, when you say non-religious, do you mean non-Christian or no religion at all? I mean no religion at all. But there's a variety of people watching tonight, spanning, from spiritual but not religious, Christian, seeking. So non-religion to me means probably no theistic religion at all. I don't know if I have any pagan friends on tonight, but you are welcome as well. But let me get back to you after some clarity on which Bible, and we'll go from there. Okay, we're going to go now to my friend Chad O'Reed, and we're going to have a word from our sponsor. Before we do, I want to let you know there are 2 sponsorship spots left for next week. So if you have a business or a project, especially if you're California or Bay Area, please let me know, because we would love to give you a little bit of funny airtime. All right, Chad, please take it away with a word from our sponsor. Oh, I cannot hear you.
Okay. Today's video was, can you hear me now, first of all?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Today's video was brought to you by our good friends at The Midwife and the Baker. This company is named after its owners, a midwife and a baker. And boy, do they make a great team. He bakes the bread and she delivers it. Their bread is so good that even the Israelites wouldn't complain about it. Their bakery has been at their new facility for almost a year, where they use real millstones to grind the flour, just like the ones that the Bible always talks about throwing over castle walls or into the sea. And speaking of sea, keep an eye out for their products in the Bay Area markets and cafes, or check out their website at www.themidwifeandthebaker.com to place online orders. It's never too early to start thinking about Thanksgiving pies, so hop on there as soon as you can to place an order, to pre-order those. And with Grubhub, you can even place orders for delivery. Place an order now, and a flock of ravens will be sent to deliver your bread to whatever secret location you might be hiding out during the pandemic. And rest assured, they guarantee that every loaf is 100% free of the leavening of the scribes and the Pharisees. That's The Midwife and the Baker at www.themidwifeandthebaker.com. And if you have to live by bread alone, make it theirs.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Chad. That was fun. All right. So you guys have seen how our first century sponsorship works, and we have a few of our locals coming up on that. So if you have a business you would like Chad to do a little promo on, you can see his wit and talent are just oozing out of every pore. We got some chuckles. So anyway, thank you so much, Chad. And Yeah. That's it for now. All right. I am looking back to Bud to see if there's any clarification. Okay. But we'll get back to you in a little bit. Let's look at the second source. The second source for how we learn a lot about Jesus is apocryphal literature. And you've probably heard about it. I think if you're Catholic, you've probably read a little bit more than if you're Protestant, I'm guessing. But the apocrypha is a set of early Christian literature that deals with some of the same characters you learn about or read about in the New Testament. These writings are not included in the Bible for a variety of reasons, and that's really a big fight, isn't it? And so we won't get into all of those, but I wanted to give you an example that you can look up. One apocryphal writing is the Gospel of Thomas. Have you heard about it? Have you read it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Mark's favorite book.
That was a setup that I was not ready for.
So the Gospel of Thomas is 114 sayings of Jesus. It has some really interesting and really weird things in it. For example, I love verse 7, which says, "Blessed is the lion that a person will eat, and the lion will become human." You've read that one?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. And then verse 114 is particularly controversial, and you've probably read more about this one than any other. Jesus said, "Look, I will draw her in so as to make her male, so that she too may become a living male spirit similar to you." Okay, so these things did not make it into the canon of scripture in a lot of Bibles because there were questions about authenticity. Now, why do people want to believe the Apocrypha? Why has there been such an interest or a push or sometimes a revival in some of these? What do you think?
I think as far as some people would say that these are written at the same time as other sacred texts.
Mm-hmm.
Some people would say, or if this is something they are accustomed to, it seems as though other people are taking something away that they have already believed or that they have already become familiar with.
That makes sense.
And some people just want something more.
Yeah. What about the juiciness of it?
Right. I mean, we already have the stuff that we become accustomed to as far as that which is by the canon. The stuff that Amie has described already. I mean, who wouldn't want some of that? It sounds interesting, and we could preach that all day long.
Yeah. So, I've got friends who are Protestant, who are Catholic. Ask them, what do they love or get out of the Apocrypha? But it can be a hot seller. Like, there's some interesting things in there. And frankly, I don't mean this derogatorily, but there are things in the apocryphal writings that can be used to promote certain agendas. So there's that. It's also very tabloidy a little bit. There's some of the things that we think are in the Gospels about Jesus are actually from apocryphal writings, like Peter being crucified upside down. That's not actually in the Protestant Bible. That's in the Apocrypha. Joseph having been previously married, that's not mentioned in the story in the standard Bible, but it's in the Apocrypha. So there's a lot of things that are kind of extras, and just because, again, they're not proven or there's not multiple witnesses or attestations, doesn't mean that it's all wrong. It's just, it was less certain or less probable than some of the other stuff.
There's still value to it.
There's absolutely at least interest.
Value in that, if nothing else, what were some of the thoughts back then or something else?
Yeah. I actually think of it as a tabloid, because if an alien species were to come down and find all of our Inquirer magazines or whatever, they might not know what is actually true, but they would sure know what was important, like what was making news, what was flashy.
And that's what I mean by value, that there's
Oh,
always
okay.
anything that is written at a certain time. There's value to know, okay, then like I said, what were people talking about, or what did people write down at a else? So even though it might not be true, like as Amie said, attested to, there's value in that it lets us know the range of things that were being produced at certain times or certain periods in history.
That makes sense. I like it. Also, some of these, like back to the Gospel of Thomas, some of these things are like, well, they call it Gnosticism, or to know. And some people think that there is special closeness to God or even salvation available to those who know secret words. And taking a magic pill and getting salvation is pretty appealing. Like if it was just like, hey, I have a secret password that will get you into heaven, of course, like I don't know that I'd risk not knowing it, even if I thought it was kind of weird. So it's very interesting stuff. And it does lend to a picture or pattern of Jesus. So just like art or creative writing, it has value. It lets us know what people were thinking about, talking about, writing about, and a lot of things, like I said, that we know from the Bible, that we think are from the Bible, are actually from apocryphal writings. Now, why don't people want to accept this as a source? We kind of hit on it a little bit.
I think, like Amie said before, if we were to take a generally accepted newspaper as opposed to the National Enquirer, and say, okay, hey, this might be interesting, this might be well written, but does it really, like, can we trust it that what it is giving us is a true representation of what's going on? And so when we said that it had value, one reason it has value is because something that does not make it in, then we see that if this does make it in, then, that's we can see that there are some standards or criteria that have to be followed. And so for some reasons, or one reason why people might not accept or might not trust it is because, hey, this doesn't quite add up with everything else that we're seeing from this time period. And so we can't really say that this holds the same kind of weight as something that might be considered canon.
Some of those specifics, it comes down to authenticity. It's difficult to prove authorship, the timing of the writing, especially for the Gospel of Thomas and others. It's non-narrative, so it's claiming to talk about Jesus, but the other parts, really involve story, really involve trying to make a point. This is not like that, and it's not falling into the other patterns. That's a big thing in history, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. It is non-patterned, and it's weird, but Christianity is weird, but it's not weird like standard Christianity. It's weird on its own. Some things don't mesh with character traits that were discussed in the Bible and corroborated by outside events. So we won't get too far into that tonight. And then some people reject it just because early church leaders who were much closer to when these writings were discovered, or when these writings were first, I guess, put under the microscope, or whatever the 2nd century equivalent was, it didn't measure up to them, and they put it through the most rigorous scholarship that they had. And so a lot of people are like, well, if it wasn't good enough for Billy Bob, then it's not good enough for me, which is not the greatest reason, but a reason nonetheless. So we are going to pause for a couple of giveaways now. So if you have pre-registered, if we have your name, we have some things to give you. The first up is the book I mentioned. And by the way, if you don't want it, all you have to do is nothing, because if you want it, then I need your address to be able to send it to you, or for Amazon to be able to send it to you. But Cold Case Christianity by J. Warner Wallace. Mark, who is going to receive that hot gift tonight?
Cold Case Christianity by J. Warner Wallace. That will actually go to a work of heart at gmail.com.
Oh, okay.
So,
a work of heart. Just so you guys know, you have through the 15th to claim your prizes. That's when the series ends, Sunday the 15th. So anytime you feel like it between now and the 15th, just send me the address you would like that mailed to. And in fact, if you are into Kindle or ebooks, that would be even easier and usually save us a couple of dollars. So let me know if you want the hard copy or the ebook. All right. Next, we have some Bob's Burger socks. Do you want to show those off? They're right here in our little studio. They're men's socks, but I wouldn't be ashamed to wear them. I don't think women would be ashamed to wear them. So if you like burgers, Bob or Bob's Burgers, you'll enjoy these. Mark, who will receive the Bob's Burger socks tonight?
The person that will receive the Bob's Burgers socks tonight, LBob ST87
At Gmail?
at gmail.com.
All right, because if the LBobs was at Ymail or other places, they couldn't have them.
No.
But all right, if that's you, then you know what to do.
Absolutely.
Send me your address. All right, the grand prize tonight, not the grand prize for the whole series. The grand prize for the whole series is a family s'mores kit that I have set my heart on. But I'm looking at them. I should have gotten over here, but now I have wires across my lap. Oh, Mark, do you want to get them? They're true wireless earbuds, and they're basically knockoffs of the you-know-who's that we will not promote. But they looked real cool, and I wanted them, so I got them for you. So, Mark, will you draw a name for who can receive these?
Those are fancy.
Yeah.
Goodness. The winner of the True Wireless Earbuds, that goes to mlangstonhoward@gmail.com.
No, you cannot have them. Did you put your name in there? Mark, we talked about this. We cannot use budget on ourselves.
We didn't call it any other. What makes you think that's my email?
Because your name is M. Langston Howard. That's you.
Okay, I guess so.
Unless it's your brother with the same middle name.
That'd be M. Layton Howard.
Okay.
But
nope.
okay.
Yeah, that's him.
Well, I didn't know that we were going out quite like that. So, alrighty.
Who is it really?
It's actually for butterskins56@gmail.com.
All right. Awesome. Okay, you guys know what to do. If you want to claim these prizes, you can email me or find me on Facebook. The best way is through Gmail, which is askachristianfriend@gmail.com. Let me know what address I can ship these to. If you want an ebook, let me know. And we'll get back to our regularly scheduled program. Thank you, Marcus Aurelius.
My pleasure, even though I'm not able to win these prizes.
All right. So last but not least, in fact, one of my favorite things to talk about is other historical examples outside the Bible, outside the community of faith, where we get so much writing about Jesus. There are a few examples from other people living in the times of Jesus or just after the times of Jesus that serve to corroborate his existence. Now, like I said at the beginning, if you are just straight up hardcore skeptic, you're not going to love this program. But if you're anywhere, to the side of that, this is interesting stuff. Some people have proposed that Jesus didn't even live, that there was no Jesus of Nazareth. By the way, I meant to mention at the beginning that we are calling him Jesus, but if we were going to be historical, we would call him Yeshua bar Yosef.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. He did go to seminary. He just forgot for a second. He gets nervous.
Very nervous. This is us. I'm not the digital evangelist, so I'm completely outside of my wheelhouse.
Right. Like one-on-one, he's great, people.
I'm nervous talking to people.
No, you're not. Okay, but we're calling him Jesus because it just seems a little bit snooty to try to pronounce Yeshua with a Hebrew accent.
Kind of the same reason why a lot of people are not going to sit here and use all kinds of Greek and Hebrew words when they're upfront talking, or why Amie might not do that all throughout the video. It's like, let's make this as concise and straight to the point.
Yeah, I just want it to be accessible.
Yeah.
Anyway, we know it's not right. Okay, so some of those are fascinating. I'm going to include a link below this stream so that you can go back and look at some of the references. But some of my favorite historic examples or quotes, Cornelius Tacitus lived 56 to 120 AD, right around the time of Jesus, a little after there, and has been called the greatest historian on ancient Rome. He was talking about the reason for the persecution of Christians under Nero, and he wrote this: consequently, to get rid of the report, Nero fastened the guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations, called Christians by the populace. Christus, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate. And a most mischievous superstition, thus checked for the moment, again broke out not only in Judea, the first source of the evil, but even in Rome, where all things hideous and shameful from every part of the world find their center and become popular. Now, I could go on. This is from the book Annals, but just to give you an example of some of the things that are out there. We'll talk about their being disputed in a second if you want to jump in on anything there. But another great historian whose writings you can pick up and read for yourself, and they've been interpreted so well, is Flavius Josephus. I wish I could ask him how to say it just right. But here's probably the most famous quote. Christian apologists will use it, sometimes not knowing that it's even contested. But here's the most famous one from Josephus. And he was about the same time, 37 to 100 AD. Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man. For he was a doer of surprising feats, a teacher of such men as receive the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of principal men among us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at the first did not forsake him, for he appeared to them alive again the third day, as the divine prophets had foretold these and 10,000 and other wonderful things concerning him. And the tribe of Christians so named from him are not extinct to this day. That's from the book Antiquities, or Antiquities of the Jews. So a lot of people think that these are corrupt or added to. And do you disagree?
As far as Josephus?
Yeah, Josephus in this last one. This is the most famous one. And people say, see, Jesus totally existed, and here's what we learned from it.
I don't know, Amie. What do you say?
Well, for a while, because it's so, like, Josephus is a Jewish man. He's biased. It would be impossible for him to hang on to his identity as a Jew and to promote Christ, to promote Jesus as the Christ. So I do think that there's probably some Christian scribe or scholar who came back and took that and messed with it a little bit. But you can check me on this. And for a while, people were just tossing it out, saying there's no way that could exist. But now scholars believe that there is a core to this that was his actual writings, and that a scribe came back in and maybe added some of those things, like if he can be called a man, but you know a little bit about the roles of scribes and what they were supposed to do. So is that a hideous thing, or?
Yes and no, and and I know that's bad, but scribes, what they would do typically, they would just sit there and just write or rewrite what was given to them. Now, sometimes you might have one scribe that might kind of go off the rails and be like, okay, well, let me kind of correct this, or let me kind of clean this up a little bit. And then at that point, that manuscript would then get passed on everywhere else. But it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was altogether as far as for a scribe to do it, it wasn't ideal. It was really, let's just take this. But as you continue to pass things down, maybe sometimes you messed it up, whatever else, or sometimes it's, like I said, let's clean this up and make this a little easier to read or understand. Or let's sit here as we're getting further and further away from the original source or from the original manuscript. Let's sit here and present this in a way so that those coming down the line can understand it better. So it's not ideal to sit here and add to something, but it also definitely was not
abnormal.
Right.
Yeah.
And it definitely was not, hey, please go do this.
And how many people in this primarily illiterate culture were scribes? Like, what percent of the population could even do this?
Oh, I mean, I think you pretty much answered the question there.
It's like, what, 0.01%?
The culture, Amie gave us the answer in her question.
I try to do that. I try to be kind.
But really, seriously, it was an illiterate culture, so most things are passed down orally. So if something was written, you were highly skilled, highly educated if you did that, or if you were able to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of tests people had to pass and prove themselves, and they're not going to just hand the document off to anybody. So that's kind of like another thing I want to mention is not like I left a letter lying around and Mark came, or like anybody walked into my office like, I'm going to change this and erase this and put a smiley face. Like it wasn't that accessible. So it was learned.
They actually had whole rituals as far as having to bathe and everything else before they even went to go copy things down.
Yeah. Right. And this doesn't prevent error.
Right.
We're not saying that.
But
we're just saying people were serious about getting it right. I'm giving you the short version, trying to watch the time here and make sure that we don't go over. But the short version is that there are a lot of biblical events that are corroborated by history. And you'll read tons of books. I've probably read 20 books on this subject now. That makes me a pretend expert. So I'm not saying like I know stuff. I'm just saying I have read so many people from like the early 90s on writing about here's why Jesus didn't exist and everything you believe is wrong. And, some Stanford courses that I've really enjoyed kind of head towards that direction. And then I've read the rebuttals that say, you know what? We might not be able to pin down any specific detail, but there are great sweeping patterns that say, here was this guy and here's what he was about that are primarily in the Bible. So I want to let you know that there's many pieces that are corroborated. I'm going to give you 8 of them right now from these historical quotes. And there's more than this, but some of them are kind of little or petty or only have one backup. But here, Christ was known as a wise man, highly regarded by some. He was known as a healer or miracle worker. Jesus was a teacher of truth for Jews and Gentiles. Jesus stirred up a lot of controversy. He was killed on a cross by Pontius Pilate. And again, I actually believe that Jesus was crucified, but that's hard to go back and measure. So it's Christ was killed on a cross by Pontius Pilate. And then people believed they saw Jesus after his crucifixion. They at least believed they saw him. We cannot be sure that they saw him, but we know that how they acted, what was recorded, what happened afterward makes it highly probable that they at least believed they saw him. Known as a prophet or sometimes the Messiah, Messiah. It's a fun word. And then number 8, set off a following that endured major persecution. So those are things that we do read about in the Bible, that we find also in apocryphal literature, also in historic, non-religious literature. Now, we talked about a little bit about bias, and I want to hear from you, and probably from you. What is bias when it comes to historical literature? What does that mean? What does bias mean? I'm going to toss it to you, Mark. What is bias when it comes to literature?
Are we talking about definition, or are we talking, or?
Yeah.
I would say coming to, and when I say text, I mean whatever is written, but coming to the text with an idea already in mind, whether as to what it means, what it's saying, or what it's for. And I think that's the shortest.
Yeah.
I think
that's great. I subscribe to that. So do you believe that the Bible is biased history? People came to the writing of it or the compiling of it already believing that Jesus was supernatural, that he was the Messiah, that he was these things?
The people that we say wrote the text.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's obviously, right? But what about the apocrypha? Were those people probably biased?
Yes.
Yeah. And then what about the historians? The outside of the So what Mark and I are saying is that this bias is not a reason to toss everything out, because you would end up with 0 testimonies. They're just testimonies. So what we have to do is realize that we're reading sources who are biased, figuring out their biases, I think, and then moving on from there, taking and gleaning what we can, taking the teaching nuggets. So right now I'm talking to you less religious folks and saying, what can you gain from studying about a great philosopher, leader, people mover in history, even if you are not religious, even if you know this text, the Bible, has a religious bias? What can you glean from the apocryphal writings? What can you glean from the historical writings? Like, some of those guys were big, bad dudes who were writing this stuff. Like, they were going to squash rebellions. They were so irritated. They were persecuting Christians. There's all kinds of biases that we could talk about. But I think we're gonna wrap it up in about 5 or 6 minutes here. But one of the things that helps me overcome my worry that the Bible is biased, because this is straight talk, and Mark and I talk about this stuff too. When we made the little commercial for this, like, it is unappealing to meet Christians who say, the Bible says it, I believe it, that settles it, and not give any thought to the challenges or apparent contradictions or, that kind of stuff. It's an unattractive look, and it doesn't lead to good stuff.
No.
But so even if we have questions about it, what do people have to gain in biblical literature from really overselling Jesus as Christ? Like, are they going to move up in the world?
Not that world.
Yeah. So if you know anything about first century Palestine, which we are going to get into over the next few nights, we're looking at a war-torn place. We're looking at a place where Christians are not looked upon fondly. Anyway, the point is that people who are supposedly compiling these eyewitness testimonies are not doing themselves any favors. When you look at what would they have to gain for really selling their bias, for really grabbing a convert, it's not much.
No.
Anyway, not much recognition, not much reward. Jesus himself said, "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." If somebody recorded that, I can't imagine they would do so with such glee. Like, no, and then they'd be like, all right, well, here's what's coming for me.
Right.
The point I'm trying to make is everything has a bias. People have very little to gain for this particular one. And even though we know we're reading things where people are coming at it from personal angles, what we really want to look at over this series is those broad sweeping patterns, what we know both from history and we read from the Protestant Bible in particular, but also maybe a sprinkling here and there of apocryphal writings. And so we want to explore who Jesus was in history and potentially who he is. But that'll be towards the end. So let's see. Oh, another one thing I wanted to mention is that, for example, some of those eight pieces of things, or I don't know how to say it, those 8 things that I told you about that are corroborated by history. What's cool about how historians figure out what has a high degree of certainty and what has a low degree of certainty is you start with those things that have multiple attestations, multiple witnesses, multiple writings. You start with those things, and then you look at what could have possibly caused them, what results from them, and things that are kind of in a bubble, or like say that was the stone thrown in the pond theologically or historically. You start to look at the ripples that go out from there, and you have the more certain things followed by slightly less certain, slightly less certain, slightly less certain. But as long as you're staying in kind of a tight-knit bubble, you could have a fairly good degree of probability that some of those things happen too. So I just want to toss that out there because I think it's interesting. So time is up for the evening. I want to make sure that you get any questions about this topic in. If you have questions about another topic, we can probably do that another time. But Mark, have you been scanning it all?
I thought that there was going to be one question that was going to come in, but it has not yet.
Okay.
So,
all right.
But we have a lot of good comments.
Well, do you have anything else you want to put in there at the end? Thanks for being my homie.
No, thanks for teaching us, leading us tonight. Looking forward to the series and getting to see, the historical Jesus.
Well, we haven't finished writing the series, so we're actually looking forward to where this goes to. If you want to help us form where we go, now's the time to get your questions in, because we have not written the final jot or tittle Bible vocabulary for you. But we would love to hear from you if there are certain things that you want to cover. Tomorrow night, we're going to take a little bit of a dive into the Pharisees, Sadducees, Essenes, because the topic was Jesus a religious rebel? So that's where we're going tomorrow night. We hope that you join us 6:30 Pacific. If you have not registered, please do, because I would hate to give these gifts to Mark, and he's going to be putting his name in there again.
Nope, tomorrow will be Michael. It'll be a different email address. I'm ready.
Oh, man. All right. Well, that's it. Do you want to stomp for anybody right now? It's still election day.
Those days are long behind me.
Okay.
No,
you're happy?
I'm happy.
All right. Well, that's it for us. We really appreciate you joining us. I'm going to probably talk about this much tomorrow night, but then Mark is going to talk, and I don't know what to say. It's probably going to be interesting. That's what I'll say.
We'll see if it's as interesting as Amie's.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to jump off here, and then we'll keep the comments open for just a couple minutes. So, all All right. I'll see you guys later. Bye.